On August 19, 2003, police in Liaoyang City, Liaoning Province received a report from a bike repair shop owner in the Baita area. The shop owner felt something was suspicious about his new mechanic, a young man who clearly wasn't making much money from his job but was spending lavishly and had even purchased a new motorcycle. Suspecting theft, the police came to investigate. When the mechanic saw the police arrive, he immediately attempted to flee but was quickly apprehended by 2 officers. This further aroused their suspicions that he was hiding something. At the police station, the man identified himself as Chang Yonggang from Shenyang, Liaoning Province, and explained that his money came from selling his parents' antiques. However, during the conversation, investigators noticed that although he spoke with a northeastern accent, it lacked the distinctive phonetic characteristics of Shenyang or any other area in Liaoning Province. They also discovered he was using fake identification documents. Under intense questioning and pressure, the suspect finally revealed his true identity. After confessing his real identity, he identified himself as Wang Liang, a 21-year-old from Changchun, Jilin Province. Wang Liang admitted he was a foreign exchange student studying in Japan. He revealed that on June 19th, 2 months earlier, a family massacre had occurred in Fukuoka. The reason he had frantically returned to China was because he had seen news reports on television and recognized that the weapons mentioned were items he had purchased for Yang Ning, his roommate. Fearing he would become a suspect, he had quickly caught a flight back to China. Police verified his personal information through the household registration system and confirmed Wang Liang's identity was correct, but the information about the crime he reported needed thorough verification. The investigators reported the situation to their superiors. Through investigation, they confirmed that a family massacre of 4 people had indeed taken place in Fukuoka, although strangely, they had not received any requests for cooperation from Japanese police. However, the investigators found sketches of suspects published on Japanese websites and noticed a striking resemblance to Wang Liang. Police decided to interrogate Wang Liang again. The interrogation lasted more than 10 hours, and with patience and continuous psychological pressure, they finally broke through Wang Liang's mental defenses. He confessed the entire truth about how he and his accomplice had carried out the murders in Fukuoka. Not only that, but Wang Liang also revealed the identity of his main accomplice, Yang Ning, who had fled with him to China. Based on Wang Liang's confession, police immediately launched a manhunt for Yang Ning. The search lasted 10 days across 2 cities, Changchun and Beijing. On August 28, 2003, investigators finally discovered and captured Yang Ning while he was hiding in a hotel in Beijing. Meanwhile, a third suspect named Wei Wei faced a different fate. Unlike his 2 accomplices, Wei Wei did not flee to China, but remained in Japan, where he was arrested by local police. Coincidentally, Chinese and Japanese police simultaneously solved the family massacre case that had shocked the public at that time. What crime had these 3 men committed? Let's go back to 2003 to learn the details of this horrific case. At 2:25 p.m. on June 20, 2003, the Fukuoka City Police Department received an emergency call with shocking news. Workers at Hakata Port had discovered a horrifying sight, a human leg protruding from the water near the shore. Immediately, police were dispatched to the scene, cordoning off the area and summoning professional rescue teams to assist with recovery. By that evening, the search had discovered a total of 4 bodies, a couple and their 2 children, a boy and a girl. The crime scene revealed extremely gruesome details. The victims' limbs were bound with handcuffs, nylon cord, or neckties. Each body was attached to heavy weights to sink them to the bottom of the sea. The woman's body was completely naked, and notably, all 4 victims had multiple bruises on their necks and bodies, signs that they had endured brutal violence before death. Police quickly determined this was not merely an accident, but a deliberate murder, carried out with extreme cruelty and organization. Due to the serious and exceptionally brutal nature of the crime, the police department leadership immediately formed a special investigation team. The medical examiner promptly performed autopsies and identified the 4 unfortunate victims. They were members of the Matsumoto family who had been reported missing that same day. Husband, Shinjiro Matsumoto, 41, wife Chika Matsumoto, 40, and their 2 children, 11-year-old son Kai Matsumoto and 8-year-old daughter Yankai Matsumoto. An important detail emerged. Chika's father was the first to report the mysterious disappearance of the entire family that morning. According to his statement, the previous evening, June 19th, Chika had brought the 2 children to visit her parents and left around 8 p.m. This confirmed that at that time, at least 3 family members were still alive. Investigators continued gathering information from surrounding neighbors. Many reported hearing sounds of fierce male arguments coming from the Matsumoto house after midnight, around 12 a.m. on June 20th. Based on this timeline evidence, along with autopsy results, experts determined the crime had occurred in the early morning of June 20th, just hours before the victims' bodies were discovered at the port. To find the primary crime scene, police searched the Matsumoto family's 2-story house. There, investigators discovered crucial clues: several unfamiliar footprints on the windowsill and first-floor bedroom floor. Based on the position of these marks, they deduced that the perpetrators had entered the house through an unlocked window. The crime scene examination also revealed blood stains in multiple locations: the entrance, stairs, and bed, marking places where confrontation and violence likely occurred. An important detail that caught investigators' attention was the presence of at least 3 different types of shoe prints, indicating the crime was committed by a group, not a single individual. Signs of evidence destruction were also clear. The bathroom glass door was broken, but all fragments had been carefully cleaned up. A vacuum cleaner normally kept on the stairs had disappeared, likely used by the perpetrators to clean the scene, then taken away to destroy evidence. Notably, through inventory checking, investigators discovered a significant detail. Valuable items like cameras, computers, and jewelry remained untouched, but all cash and bank cards belonging to the victims had vanished without a trace. On June 21st, one day after discovering the bodies, the forensic report revealed shocking conclusions about the cause of death. According to the examination, both Shinjiro and Chika Matsumoto died from drowning. Chika's body showed signs of strangulation around her neck, and more importantly, under her fingernails was DNA from 2 unknown men, proving she had fiercely resisted before death. For the 2 children, the examination determined both died from suffocation due to compression. The handcuffs were identified as toy models, not professional equipment, but were used effectively. To ensure the bodies sank deep into the sea, the killers attached 22-pound weights to the victims, along with a large rusty iron block weighing about 66 pounds, whose origin remained unidentified. Combining all evidence and traces, experts concluded that before being murdered, the entire Matsumoto family had endured brutal acts of violence, almost amounting to torture. 4 days after the crime, on June 24, 2003, an important discovery accelerated the investigation. The Matsumoto's Mercedes was found at an abandoned factory. Although the interior and trunk showed signs of careful cleaning with modern forensic technology, experts collected several DNA samples not belonging to any Matsumoto family member, valuable clues about the killer's identities. Recognizing the nature of the crime with clear intent to murder and careful planning, not an ordinary criminal case, police decided to broaden their investigation, focusing on the Matsumoto family's social relationships to find motives. Through investigation, they reconstructed the family's story. The Matsumoto couple were both Fukuoka natives. They married in 1990 and later had a son and daughter, living a peaceful and happy life. The turning point in Shinjiro's life came when his father died and left him a significant inheritance. With this money and a mortgage on the family home, Shinjiro risked opening 2 Korean restaurants, hoping to build a solid business career. However, fate did not smile on this family. In 2001, the mad cow disease outbreak severely impacted the food industry. Shinjiro's restaurant chain couldn't withstand the crisis wave and had to close one after another, leaving enormous debts. Financial pressure mounted as he shouldered a mortgage of 40 million yen, approximately $364,000, a tremendous financial burden for a small family. After failing with the restaurants, Shinjiro didn't give up but continued seeking a new direction. He decided to partner with his brother-in-law to open a clothing store, hoping to succeed in a different industry. Yet fate seemed to continue working against him. The clothing business wasn't promising either. The situation became more serious when, in 2003, his brother-in-law decided to withdraw from the business. Facing a second bankruptcy, Shinjiro made the decision to borrow an additional 7 million yen, about $64,000, from high-interest lenders to maintain business operations. This was a risky move, but he had no other choice. However, even with additional investment, the business showed no signs of improvement. Financial problems continued piling up. Lenders began coming to the house to collect debts, making the Matsumoto family's financial distress a topic of neighborhood gossip. Shinjiro's debt burden now included the initial 40 million yen mortgage, the 7 million yen high-interest loan, along with 10 million yen, about $91,000, owed to his brother-in-law, an enormous total amount for a family on the verge of bankruptcy. In desperation, Shinjiro turned to illicit methods to quickly get money to pay debts. Leveraging relationships from his past, his father and uncle had been gang members. Shinjiro quickly established an underground network and began venturing into drug dealing and activities in the pornography industry. Another notable detail about the Matsumoto family's financial situation was that between 1993 and 1999, they had purchased multiple insurance policies with a total insured amount of approximately 200 million yen, about $1.82 million. Subsequently, the investigation team focused on high-interest loans and drugs to explore whether the incident was related to economic disputes with gangs or relatives. However, after investigation, all suspicions were ruled out. Police then began investigating the victim's family insurance, suspecting they might have been forced by debt collectors to purchase large insurance policies and then killed. But the insurance was purchased in the 1990s, while the high-interest loan was borrowed after 2003, and those with economic disputes with him would not benefit from their insurance. In summary, after a series of investigations, economic disputes and insurance fraud leading to murder were all ruled out. During the investigation, important evidence like the weights and handcuffs found on the victims' bodies opened a new direction. Investigators noted these were all common products, easily purchased at many retail stores. They screened surveillance cameras at stores near the Matsumoto home and made a breakthrough discovery: footage of a young man buying exactly 4 pairs of handcuffs and 2 weights, just 2 days before the crime. Careful analysis of security camera footage finally helped investigators sketch the suspect's appearance. On July 22, 2003, police widely released a composite image of the man who had purchased the handcuffs, hoping the public could provide information. This strategy quickly yielded results. Within a week, they received over 70 tips from citizens. Particularly valuable information came from a student at a Japanese language school in Fukuoka. This person affirmed the suspect in the image resembled a Chinese exchange student named Wang Liang, matching the man who had confessed to the crime to Chinese police. Immediately, Japanese police took action, going directly to the apartment Wang Liang had rented on August 3rd. However, they arrived too late. The apartment was empty, and Wang Liang had managed to escape, perhaps after seeing information about himself being sought. Not giving up, police quickly launched a comprehensive investigation into Wang Liang's background. Wang Liang was 21 years old, from Changchun, Jilin Province, China. A year before the crime, in March 2002, he came to Japan as an exchange student and temporarily studied at a Japanese language school. His family ran a business and was quite well off. After arriving in Japan, he didn't study diligently, but only knew how to party. Without family constraints, he was like a horse without reins. Unable to adapt to structured study and life, he began frequenting casinos, bars, or certain special entertainment venues. In May 2003, due to excessive absences and not paying tuition on time, Wang Liang was expelled according to regulations. But he wasn't honest with his family, continuing to defraud money from them to stay in Japan. He lived aimlessly each day until his family discovered the truth and stopped sending him money, demanding he return home soon. In Japan, he had a companion, Yang Ning, who shared an apartment with him. Yang Ning was 23 years old, also from Changchun, Jilin Province, and had come to Japan to study 2 years before Wang Liang and had been accepted into a private university. Their families in Changchun were close friends, and they had been friends since childhood with a very good relationship. In Japan, they had rented an apartment together. Initially, Yang Ning's academic performance was acceptable, but after Wang Liang arrived in Japan, he couldn't resist Wang Liang's daily invitations and followed him into spending money and indulgence. Around April 2003, Yang Ning applied for a leave of absence citing health reasons. 4 days after the family massacre occurred, on June 24th, the two returned to China together. But police found many of their daily necessities in the apartment and extracted DNA. After comparing with suspect DNA collected from the crime scene, since the two samples completely matched these two men, they were identified as having major suspicions in committing the crime. Later, through their phone call records, police found a third suspect. This was Wei Wei, 23 years old, from Zhengzhou, Henan Province, also an exchange student. His parents were in business, and the family was well off. To let him study abroad and cultivate independence, in April 2001, they spent money to send him to study in Japan. After graduating from Japanese language school, he had studied at a vocational school in Fukuoka. The three met at an internet cafe and later became close, spending leisure time together. The investigation line continued expanding when police discovered an important clue from the landlord of another apartment. This person stated that at the place where Wei Wei and his girlfriend lived, a large iron block usually used to hold down objects had mysteriously disappeared. This detail immediately attracted investigators' attention because the characteristics of that iron block completely matched a rusty iron block weighing about 66 pounds that was tied to Chica's body when retrieved from the sea. This coincidence could not be ignored, making Wei Wei the third main suspect in the case. Unlike his two accomplices who had quickly fled to China, Wei Wei initially decided to hide in Japan. However, as investigation pressure increased and news about the case flooded the media, he also began to panic and planned to escape back to China. In this urgent situation, Wei Wei's girlfriend supported him with 130,000 yen, about $1,180, to buy a plane ticket. But right after booking the ticket, before being able to leave Japan, Wei Wei was discovered and arrested by police on August 6, 2003, exactly 1.5 months after the horrific crime occurred. With DNA samples collected from the crime scene and compared with Wei Wei's biological samples, forensic experts confirmed he was one of the direct perpetrators in the Matsumoto family massacre. However, unlike his two accomplices who had confessed in China, Wei Wei, after being arrested, firmly denied all accusations. Throughout the interrogation, he chose to remain completely silent, never mentioning the case or his role in this horrific crime. It wasn't until Chinese police later caught Wang Liang and Yang Ning in China that the sequence of the crime was reconstructed through their confessions. This particularly serious transnational robbery-murder case was finally clarified. When Wang Liang, Yang Ning, and Wei Wei met, they quickly became close in a special way. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. Life studying abroad in Japan had not been as they initially imagined. Instead of a free and open life, they faced harsh realities. Heavy study loads, monotonous schedules, and especially the increasing financial pressure from expensive tuition and living costs. The difficulties of exchange student life, from academic competition pressure to the burden of survival in a foreign land, gradually eroded the will of individuals lacking determination like them. The psychology of all three began to distort, giving rise to intentions to abandon their studies and return to China. However, a feeling of guilt emerged. Their families had spent large sums to send them to study abroad, and returning empty-handed would be an unacceptable failure. From this dissatisfaction and sense of failure, an extreme idea gradually formed. They wanted to recoup the money spent in Japan by any means necessary. Initially, this was just a passing thought between Wang Liang and Yang Ning. But when shared with Wei Wei, instead of dissuading them, he enthusiastically agreed and was ready to participate. The truth was that Wei Wei was no stranger to criminal activities. He had carried out many small robberies in Japan, though mainly targeting fellow countrymen and earning insignificant amounts. What's difficult to understand is that with Wei Wei's affluent family background, he had no financial shortages. Before going to Japan, he had been an excellent student, evaluated by everyone as calm, steady, and having a promising future. But when freed from parental supervision, his nature gradually changed, from an exemplary student to a criminal. In his distorted mindset, joining friends in wrongdoing wasn't a sin, but a display of brotherhood and genuine friendship. Thus, based on Wei Wei's previous criminal experience, the three together carried out several thefts and robberies. But the stolen money was quickly spent. In June 2003, the three decided to do something bigger, but clearly robbing fellow exchange students could no longer satisfy their greed. Ning remembered that while working part-time, he often passed by the Matsumoto house. This family looked very wealthy, drove luxury cars daily, and Shinjiro was the only adult male in the house. The target identified, the three began discussing the timing, weapons, planning every detail, and decided to eliminate witnesses after the crime. With determination to carry out their cruel plan, the three began carefully preparing each murder weapon, from handcuffs to ropes, heavy iron blocks, and weights. They spent time meticulously surveying coastal areas, looking for suitable locations to dispose of the bodies. The idea of sinking victims to the seabed was not only to erase traces, but also to mislead police, making them suspect this was a Yakuza gang execution, a method these criminal organizations often use to eliminate witnesses. On June 19th, a light rain fell in Fukuoka, creating favorable conditions for the dark plan. After a day monitoring the Matsumoto house, they saw their opportunity had come. The family car wasn't home, indicating Shinjiro, the only man who could give them trouble, was out. The first-floor bedroom window was unlocked, providing easy entry. The three patiently hid in the darkness, waiting for the right moment. After midnight, when surroundings were completely quiet, they climbed through the window one by one, infiltrating the house. The situation inside was even more favorable for their plan. Chika was bathing, completely off guard, while the two children Kai and Yangchai were sound asleep on the second floor. They quickly assigned tasks. Wang Liang went upstairs to monitor the two children, ensuring they wouldn't wake up and cry for help. Meanwhile, Yang Ning and Wei Wei focused on their first target, Chika. With careful calculation, they even wore hats hanging in the house to prevent hair from falling at the scene. Around 12:15 a.m., Yang Ning and Wei Wei proceeded with the next step in their cruel plan. Suddenly barging into the bathroom, the two confronted Chika Matsumoto, who was completely off guard. Reacting naturally, Chika screamed in panic, but her cry for help was immediately silenced. Fearing her scream might wake neighbors, Wei Wei quickly grabbed Chika's neck, then used his male strength to push the unfortunate woman under the full bathtub. The struggle lasted about 10 horrifying minutes, during which Chika certainly tried to resist fiercely, as evidenced by the perpetrator's DNA found under her fingernails. Finally, with strength exhausted, Chika became the first victim, drowning in her own bathroom. After killing the woman, the two showed no remorse or hesitation. They coldly began searching for valuables in the house. In a purse, they found 15,000 yen, about $136, in cash along with some bank cards, an amount far too small compared to the human life just taken. Afterward, Yang Ning and Wei Wei went upstairs, reported to Wang Liang that they had handled the woman, then decided to target the children in the house. The three quickly discussed and decided to continue their crimes. The next targets were the sleeping children. Around 12:30 a.m., they burst into the siblings' bedroom. Without hesitation, Wei Wei used a pillow to cover 11-year-old Kai's face, blocking his airway until the boy stopped moving, a painful death by suffocation. Simultaneously, Yang Ning handcuffed 8-year-old young Kai and took her to the first-floor bedroom, intending to use her as a hostage to control her father when he returned. After 2 consecutive murders, despite being cruel, Wei Wei showed signs of psychological shock. He told his accomplices he would go outside to watch for Shinjiro's return, but actually needed a quiet place to sit down and regain composure. Around 1:40 a.m., the house immersed in a horrifying atmosphere suddenly echoed with the sound of a Mercedes parking abruptly outside. Shinjiro had finally returned home after a long day. Not knowing his entire family had met with disaster, the tired man entered the house and immediately froze at the scene unfolding. Yang Ning and Wang Liang were holding his little daughter hostage. Faced with his daughter being threatened, Shinjiro immediately knelt down begging, hastily taking out his wallet and promising to fully cooperate. The robbers quickly handcuffed the victim and searched his wallet, taking 23,000 yen, about $209, in cash along with bank cards. Shinjiro, in desperation, confessed to them that he was facing a serious financial crisis, and the bank cards had almost no money. However, Wei Wei didn't believe Shinjiro. Thinking he was lying, Wei Wei delivered a powerful kick that sent Shinjiro flying backward, crashing into the bathroom's sliding glass door. The sound of shattering glass echoed in the late night. Under threats and pain, Shinjiro finally revealed the PINs for his bank cards. Wei Wei then cut the vacuum cleaner's cord, using it to tightly bind Shinjiro, rendering the victim completely helpless. Around 2 a.m., after obtaining the necessary information, Wei Wei and Yang Ning decided to leave no witnesses. They took a necktie, working together to tightly strangle Shinjiro until he lost consciousness. Then, with unimaginable cruelty, they used the same method to end the life of little Yang Kai. After completing their crimes, the three began erasing traces at the scene. Wei Wei drove Shinjiro's Mercedes, making 2 separate trips to transport the 4 victims' bodies to Hakata Port in the East District, about 1.9 miles away. There, they tied weights and the large iron block to the victims' bodies and threw them into the sea. In fact, Shinjiro was still alive when thrown into the sea. He was only unconscious after being strangled, and his actual death occurred from drowning after being thrown into the sea. The robbers drove to a factory 315 feet away, carefully wiped down the car, and discarded the murder weapons along with blood-stained items from the crime scene, such as floor mats. On that drizzly night, over about 4 hours, the 3 criminals completely lost their humanity, cruelly murdering an entire family of 4. As a result, they only stole less than 40,000 yen, about $364, in cash and a few bank cards. They also believed Shinjiro's statement that the cards had little money, so they threw them directly into the trash, feeling it unnecessary to risk withdrawing money. Wei Wei received 10,000 yen, about $91, with the remainder split equally between Yang Ning and Wang Liang. They thought it would take time to discover the bodies, but that very afternoon, Japanese police had already begun investigating. When they learned of this, Yang Ning and Wang Liang quickly returned to China. Wei Wei hid for a while, with his girlfriend providing money for a plane ticket so he could return home. Just after booking the plane ticket and preparing to return home, he was arrested by police on August 6th. Similarly, on August 19th and 28th, Wang Liang and Yang Ning were arrested in Liaoning and Beijing, respectively. From when the crime occurred until the arrests, a total of 2 months and 8 days had passed. After interrogation, all 3 admitted the truth of their crimes. 2 other exchange students who had previously participated in robberies with Wei Wei also turned themselves in. China and Japan belong to different legal systems, with different investigation and trial models, and no extradition treaty. The 2 suspects who had fled back to China could not be sent back to Japan for trial. They could only be tried in Chinese courts. Therefore, judicial cooperation between the 2 countries became a media focus. Although for a long time they had not received requests for investigative assistance from Japanese police, Chinese police expressed that, if needed, they would certainly cooperate. Later, law enforcement personnel from both countries actively exchanged information about the case's continuation, working together just to ensure the criminals would face legal punishment. In December, Japanese police visited the Japanese Consulate General in Shenyang, confirming that Wang Liang and Yang Ning's confessions during interrogation in China were consistent with the case details, from which much physical evidence was collected. These also became evidence presented to the court in Wei Wei's trial in Japan. In separate trials in the 2 countries, all 3 attempted to avoid responsibility and blame each other, arguing about who was the mastermind. There were some disagreements about who was the ringleader, but they still could not escape the final verdict. In January 2005, the Liaoyang City Intermediate People's Court in Liaoning Province delivered a first-instance judgment against Yang Ning and Wang Liang, who had fled back to China. Many reporters from both countries and the victims' families also came from Japan to attend the trial. Finally, Yang Ning was sentenced to death for intentional homicide, robbery, and theft, with lifelong deprivation of political rights. Wang Liang, after being arrested, had actively confessed his crimes and cooperated with police in capturing Yang Ning, which was considered a major contribution, so he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Both did not accept the sentences and appealed, but the appeals were rejected and the original sentences upheld. On July 12, 2005, 2 years after the crime and 6 months after the sentence took effect, Yang Ning was executed in China. On May 19, 2005, the Fukuoka District Court sentenced to death Wei Wei, the main perpetrator in the Fukuoka massacre. Wei Wei appealed to the Fukuoka High Court, but failed. He then appealed to the Supreme Court, claiming he was not the mastermind. Until October 20, 2011, the Supreme Court rejected the appeal and pronounced the death sentence. On December 26, 2019, after 16 years since the verdict, Wei Wei was executed at the detention facility in Fukuoka. Japan's final verdict on the case was considered formally closed, but after the case was reported, it caused a massive wave of public opinion in Japan. People were heartbroken over the fate of the Matsumoto family and simultaneously outraged by the perpetrators' brutal behavior. The most affected group was the exchange student community. For a long time, exchange students in Japan faced deliberate discrimination, such as reduced scholarships, canceled internship positions at businesses, or being fired by employers. Visa screening for exchange students also became stricter. Many young Chinese wanting to study in Japan had to fill out and submit many more forms and supporting documents than people from other countries. Even exchange students from Jilin province would be immediately denied visas. And that's today's case. Thank you for watching and see you in our next videos.